What's up, people?
Hey, mate, where you been all my life?
Wes, have you got a new hat?
It's an old colourway, but I can't flexing it today. I quite like it. It's like a grey and a neon yellow, which was one of the early rounds that never really made it, but I quite liked it today, so I thought I'd have it.
It's nice.
Thanks, man.
I would have loved to see the red one. It would have matched your face a bit today.
I'm hot. I told you like my house is like a furnace. Like I'm roasting.
Mate, look at me. I've caught it as well.
Yeah, mate, you're turning shades, Ash.
Yeah, I'm getting some freckles as well. Look, can you see my freckles on my nose?
It's coming back. Ash is morphing. Anyway, how is everyone? Put your flags up.
Mark is here. Mark actually joined 50 seconds earlier. How was your week, boys? How was your week, boys? From 1 to 11.
Mate, Martin. Do we tell the truth or do we lie for the air?
The truth.
Mate, my week's been fucked.
Yeah.
Good. I think I've had a really positive end, but Jesus Christ, by Tuesday, Wednesday, I was literally virtual violining my energy to Martin over WhatsApp because I was I'm ready to die. Yeah, same.
I think we had the same week. I had a shitty Monday, and then it just went up climbing and went really well. But the first beginning,
you told me about it because I've not been in this conversation.
He didn't know it. He's been building a podcast studio on flexing all his little.
You're too busy, you piece of shit.
It's got no time for us anymore, man.
Oh mate, I have been just no sleep.
We've got 11. Leave it in the group says 11.
11. Hassan, hey buddy. Mark, welcome back. Miroslav, 7 to 8.
Greatest, deepest voice.
Let's do 8, buddy. Also tell us, where are you joining us from? Last week we had people from Jamaica, we had Nigeria. We had Cyprus.
It was
Red Leeds.
Let's go wide. We're going wide with Wham. This is Wham on tour. Can't wait for
Wham on tour. Yeah, and also actually we'll be in the UK for Christmas around the week of the 10th. So we'll probably do something. We'll try to catch up.
We're definitely going to organize a meetup. So
we're gonna organize a meetup so everyone can buy Wes Negroni and see how many does he need before he forgets why.
It's quite impressive, though, isn't it? It's quite impressive. The Negroni count's quite good. It's quite good.
So I've got a bit of a dilemma, guys.
What's your dilemma?
In that, my mouse has just decided to go flat, so I'm going to have to charge it. And who's got controls there?
I don't have controls because you didn't let me today. So
I have controls. You can talk.
No, it's all right. I'm good. I plugged into something else and I've put it on the shelf, so my hand's going to be like this.
Right, come on, let's go.
Anyway, let's get started.
Wait.
Why don't you tell them how the show works? Why don't you tell them how the show works, Martin?
How the show works. This show.
Yeah, how does it work?
So to welcome to all the virgins of the water cooler. Glad to have you here, and promised we will be kind on you. What is the water cooler? The water cooler is a bi-weekly live show with secret guests. We had some incredible people. We had who did we have? We had
Roy
Sutherland, Martin Neumeyer. Every single time we have the most amazing, super duper awesome guest. They're secret until the end, so you never know who you're gonna get, but you know that you're gonna get something great. It's live, unscripted, it's raw. Subscribe, send Negroni, tell a friend, join the club.
The theory of a water cooler where the whole concept came from is we turn up, We talk shit on a Friday afternoon. We kill some time and we learn something new. We meet somebody we didn't know. Simple as that. That's how the format
As
works.
simple as that. Oh my God, we have such a good representation of people
Yeah,
in
man.
here.
Somebody's repping Guinness there in the chat. I'm in.
Yeah, man.
So just to finish off, wrap this loop. So my meeting today, I met a ton of people in the hospitality sector, and we all met on a brewery tour. So my meeting today was in a brewery, doing a brewery tour.
A piece of shit.
What a fucking ace job I've got.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Fucking hate you.
Oh dear.
Ash, take
Right,
us for a takeoff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into the episode. We're going to talk about brand DNA and does this thing really exist? Because we as brand strategists and marketing people love frameworks, and a lot of people out there love buzzwords. Is this one of them, or is this something real? So we're going to dig into it. And spoiler alert, it is something real. And we've got the perfect person to speak to about this. He is the former head of BBDO in Hong Kong, author of a book called Dim Sum Strategy, founder of Dolphin Brand Strategy. You probably know who it is already now. Worked with the giants like Coca-Cola, BMW, Cathay Pacific, and he is obsessed with decoding what makes brands stick, from global icons to local gems. Ladies and gents, please give a warm welcome to man known by all. My mouse almost went.
Come on.
Cliffhanger, the father of brand DNA, Mr. Peter Wilkin.
Yes, mate.
Hello, everybody. I hope I don't scare everybody off now. I can see people dropping off and with disappointment. They're saying, oh my God, it's him.
Everyone knows who you are, Peter.
Usually people drop as soon as they see Wes. So
well, I'm repping today. I've done well.
Oh no, that's great. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Great to be here with you guys in the water cooler.
Peter,
it's a beer barrel more than a water cooler, from what I can see.
You can see the chat. I told you.
You
in the green room, like we've definitely got a community happening for sure.
Well, it's 80% water, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, definitely,
or even more than that. Peter, where are you joining from to add a bit of spice to the session? Where are you at?
I am joining from beautiful British Columbia, West Vancouver in British Columbia. So
wow,
open invitation to anyone here listening. And I can see there's a few people I know there. Charlotte, hi from Scotland. Yeah, she knows that I originally hail from Edinburgh, Scotland, but I've lived most of my life in Asia. So yeah, all over. I see there's people from Pakistan. I used to spend time out there traveling around the region. Mostly Asia and Southeast Asia.
Tell us a bit about that background then, because I don't know much about that background. I know you were in Asia, but when were you there and what took you there?
God, it was a different life ago now, Ash. It was. I started off, if anyone knows the Madman Netflix series, do you know that?
Yes.
You watched that? That was the life I kind of lived, except like 20 years later. That was set in the 50s and 60s, but I started in the advertising world in London in the early 80s, and it was not that different, I have to say. It was like the twilight end of that golden era, and so I moved from Ogilvy in London to Singapore. I was put there, and ended up looking after kind of Shell International, and that's when I got PepsiCo business in as well. I moved around through there from Hong Kong back to Manila. I ran the Ogilvy office there. That was an amazing story. We had an amazing red hot little agency that won. It was the third most awarded agency in the Ogilvy network, and Martin Sorrell just kind of discovered that and came and wondered what we were doing. We were doing it because we were breaking all the rules, basically, that they'd established. Lots of fun stories in that. And then got poached by Burnett's, ran their Southeast Asia operation out of Kuala Lumpur for 4 or 5 years. Really interesting times, difficult times, first Asian crisis, and Anwar Ibrahim being imprisoned, and lots of religious battles, Bhumi-Putra Malays against the Indians and the Chinese. And it was a very interesting challenge running that. And and then got poached to BBDO to run BBDO Asia Pacific, and I looked after their 14 markets there. That was the kind of last corporate role. I hit my ceiling of incompetence, kind of pressing flesh at a regional level, spent 265 days of the year flying around the world pretending I was important, and wanging on about how creative BBDO was, which it was a great agency, but it was not my kind of thing. It was managing big egos in New York and elsewhere and stuff, and London, and less getting your hands on running an agency. And I ended up forming my own company with a couple of partners in Hong Kong called the Brand Company, which we'll maybe talk about a little later, because that's where the brand DNA came out of. And my other partners was the young Hong Kong entrepreneur of the year, who had made himself a multi-squillionaire at the age of 26 on the back of China.com, and lost most of it by the age of 28, putting it back into other things. And a really smart guy who was Li Ka-shing's top marketing guy in his telco business. And the three of us got together, formed the Brand Company, which with the glory of kind of 25, nearly 30 years hindsight now, we were one of the very first pioneer specialist brand consulting firms. And, even though people would mistake us still as a design firm and they'd come in and ask for logos and stuff like that, we didn't do any. We did through other third parties. We were entirely strategic, and we used the brand as a kind of, we were a change management agency, but using the brand as the tool to change organizations from the inside out. And we developed this program called Brand-Centered Management, the heart of which was the brand DNA. Hey,
tell us a little bit more about that then, the brand DNA, how that came about then.
Yeah, well, when we started, we kind of we observed, there was me coming from the ad world, there was James coming from the client side, and there was Ian coming from the entrepreneurial business side, and all of us observed that there was millions and millions and millions of dollars being spent on what we call the superficial packaging of brands. Not to do it down. That was the logos, the design language, and to an extent also the advertising communications, the tangible things that clients were spending their money on, but not the substance of the experience of the client's products or services. And those were the kind of things that overruled the superficial side, but there were no tools or no real focus on what you were actually doing on things that affected the products that you were doing or the services. And all of the strategic models were up and around then, but they were all directed to the superficial side. And don't get me wrong, because there's lots of graphic designers and creative types out there, that it's hugely important to embellish what your kind of positioning is, who you are, what you stand for, to whom and why. But it's much more important that you've got the substance. If you walk into a room and say, "Look at me, I'm Peter and stylish, like my new suit," they'll say, no, Peter, we know you haven't got an ounce of style in you, but you've got a lot of integrity and other things, like that. So we said, look, well, if you can take some of these tools that are out there that are being used for the design side and change it into the strategic side, it's going to make a huge difference to organizations, because it will create fundamental change. And so we started off with this, the notion of a brand-centered management approach, where a brand is, the territory in the mind and the heart that you own in your most valuable customers or stakeholders' minds. And it's key associations, yes, but it's that territory that you define. And if you can define that in a way that is incredibly rich and compelling and relevant, of course, distinctive or differentiating, and above all credible, you've got a winning formula. If you can keep it simple enough to be memorable, but rich enough to really differentiate yourself from your key competitors, you've got a winning formula. And so we created, this by trial and error, what we called, the brand DNA. And Why was it a brand DNA? It was because it was a template for replicating consistent desired perceptions and experiences of your brand. You know, we used to go in to these client offices and we'd see the classic vision, mission, value thing, you know, up behind a glass, you know, frame in the lobby, and they were all saying the same bloody things. You know, we'll be the best company to work with, high integrity, quality, commitment to excellence, you know, the good to great. All of the cliches were there and nobody could remember them, and they weren't really distinct. Occasionally you'd get a good one, but very, very rarely, 9 out of 10, they were rubbish. And so we said, we don't want to do that. We want a framework that will give really rich, meaningful, distinctive character to your organization. And so our DNA had 4 or 5 key components, and it started with the role, you know, why you exist. This was way before Simon Sinek was doing his wonderful why thing, which he marketed much, much better than we ever did. He brilliantly, you know, talk, you know, but it started with that role. You know, why do you exist beyond making money to serve your key customers? And that's the hardest thing, actually. We kind of do it last. But behind that was your beliefs. You know, what is it that you believe in? And again, going beyond the cliched hygiene factors, everyone, you know, believes in operating with sincerity and high integrity and with a commitment to quality and excellence and all the rest of it. Yeah, well, look, you know, I wouldn't want to work with you if you didn't do that. You know, don't bother saying it. What are the things that really stand you apart, you know, in your beliefs? And then the core of the DNA was the promise, you know, your overarching commitment to your key stakeholders, which also begged the question of who were your key stakeholders. And that led into things called practical segmentation, you know, just, you know, the 3 to 5 key segments that you could work on, whether you're a huge company or a small. Nobody can do more than that. And you know, the benefit was another component, the benefit that your customers get from you successfully delivering your promise. So you know whether or not you've achieved success and you're getting the feedback that you want. And then we kind of wrapped it all together in what we call the spirit or the culture, the way in which you go about doing it. I mean, nowadays the jargon is how you show up. And we've then, since kind of in the 25 years we've added a couple of other things in, which were your core idea or your rallying cry, you know, it was there. So it helps you really focus to define, you know, what it is that you're trying to communicate in your key messages. And also I put in icons and attributes. So things that you may, or you own, that act as a kind of catalyst or a spark to invoke the whole of your brand DNA. And so when you get all of those components together, there's a rich enough format or formula, if you like, to be able to really describe something that is truly unique and to you. And it, you know, it works across all categories, you know, whether or not, you know, you're in a commercial sphere or not for profit. We've done it for branding cities. We've done it for huge organizations like AIG and Shangri-La and the biggest property company in the world at the time, Shanghai. You know, we talked about Cathay, to really small little startups, you know, YouTube startups selling men's hair care products, and everything, it works. So, you know, if you've got people listening here saying, oh, well, it's not relevant for me because all it was Coke and Shell and BMW and yada, yada, big impressive brands. But no, the principles are exactly the same, and they work whether or not you're a solopreneur startup and you're kind of combining your personal brand characteristics with your commercial ones. That's the other thing. The same categories work for personal and commercial brands. So you imagine that it's like, I kind of imagine it in this imaginary blue velvet bag with a kind of little gold bow. It's all tied together. It kind of, you don't own it, your client owns it, but it cements and it becomes rock solid and really hard, and it never changes. Your core beliefs don't change. If you find yourself after, you know, 6 months of, you know, your client taking ownership of their brand DNA, if they start beginning to change it, you say, no, you know, are you talking about developing another brand? Because this is your brand, you know. And it acts like that lighthouse beacon that it stands for centuries on a solid foundation of rock, your beliefs, and and the beam of your lighthouse doesn't change. The message is consistent. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe. This is what we promise.
Can I just interject there, Peter? So what happens then? This is just for a question that I get a lot. What happens over time when things change, environments change, trends change? How do you adapt but still stay real to that core?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, it does not prevent your positioning, what it is you want to stand for in people's minds, doesn't change ever. But the way in which you go to market and present it, and maybe the products or the services that you change and adapt to it. So, I mean, let me give you an example. We had Kodak. Kodak hadn't actually done that brand DNA thing, but we had an amazing promise for them as an organization, which was keep it with Kodak, keep your memories and your images with Kodak. And they used to own the old world of, physical photographic prints. And I can remember the regional guy came to me and they had a product called Advantix, which was the big technology then. This will make you laugh. The big idea was that they miniaturized the images, so you could actually pre-select and order, for them where they made their money, the silver nitrate processing of more images. And even then, digital photography was around. I said to them, look, you're spending millions and millions of dollars on this. You've kind of, I don't know why you're selling this when we've already got, imagery being captured in digital. It was in discs in that format. And, shouldn't you be using that? And they're saying, oh, no, Peter, you don't understand. I'm saying, well, tell me what I don't understand. And they said, all our money is in the back end processing through silver nitrate and chemical sales through our large retail distribution network, So we start going digital, we kill the cash cow. And I said, but can you see the way the world's moving? I said, it's not important what the delivery mechanism is. It's important you own the space of keep images that are important to you with Kodak. And so they could have easily jumped, technology, but they didn't. And now nobody keeps it with Kodak. The irony being, it was a Kodak engineer who designed the first digital camera. So,
Peter, it makes all sense to us, right? So maybe we call it different names, and we have slightly different processes. And I think a lot of the people joining in the call as well, they were just nodding, yeah, I do this, I do that, I get it. But how do you make non-believers get it? Because I think that you must have that big friction of trying to sell this or promote this or explain this to the CTO, to the CFO, to the CEO. So what have you learned in your impressive career in terms of how you played it in a way that it becomes an irresistible dish for them?
It's a great question. And by the way, I'm not particularly a believer in just flogging an instant framework or a formula. We've never pretended that there aren't other great strategic thinking models out there that we use. And the whole philosophy of brand-centered management was it's Catholic in its choice of strategic models.
That's right.
Use the right ones to fit. I'm not saying Peter Wilkins, brand DNA model is the only one. Come and use this. Have you not got that? You've been doing it wrong for 20 years. No, none of that. It's a very welcoming, open kind of philosophy. But that said, it does help to have some order and rigidity in a process that helps you see through things that can accommodate different uses. That's dim sum strategy is all that. It's like sharing 40 or 50 different strategic tools that have been really helpful according to what my clients have told us to do. So I don't kind of flog one particular model. But your question, Martin, was more, how do you do it to the non-believers? Well, to be honest now, I'm an old dog and I don't waste my time on the people who, the horses that you can take to the water, but they never drink. There are easy ways of telling whether or not you're spinning your wheels and wasting your energy. Don't waste too much time on them. And I try and be helpful. and I try and speak their language, and I'll say, look, when you see your competitors following this philosophy and having a positioning and things like this, and you say, give me a call back, and very occasionally they do, but often they don't. And so that's a bit of a sneak answer, but over time, that's kind of what I do. Try and see.
Totally.
Yeah. And, we're all in this business, and your listeners are going to nod to this when I say it. Half the world out there wouldn't know a brilliant creative idea or graphic design if it came up and bit them in the bum. And they don't necessarily value it. They know they need to do it, but it's a box ticking exercise. Those marketing people just do it down there. They're below the boardroom level now, and just go down and tick that box. And the other half absolutely value it and see it as, the huge, hugely important, strategic driver of their entire business half the time, and really value it. And then there's everyone kind of in the middle, and you can assess that. I mean, my background was psychology as well, and so I'm a certified practitioner in whole brain thinking, and I urge you to kind of look at that if you haven't done that. Herman whole brain thinking, where you can identify the thinking preferences and whether you're an analytical procedural thinker or a creative conceptual interpersonal thinker. And
what are you?
Yeah.
Long answer to your question, but I can tell pretty much where they go and how much effort I'm going to have to put in to persuade someone. Occasionally you do, and I don't kind of give up. I don't want to be a cynical old git, who just doesn't give anyone a chance to change. But I know whether it's going to be a battle if I'm dealing with an avid built-in left modal thinker who's all just into analytics and research, and then research the research, because that's not enough, analysis paralysis. When I'll say, have you thought of having a kind of conceptual leap of faith here that will make you feel uncomfortable? Are you willing to let go? Are you willing to kind of take a calculated risk?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. Like I've spoke to you a while now, but I didn't know that side of you. When we like pre-plan workshops, we actually use psychographics to piece together teams for that exact reason. And I didn't know that about you, but I just wanted to.
Oh gosh, you should do it. I mean, if you're using, I know I've talked about this with Marty Neumeier, and I know Andy does his level C stuff, and they use MBTI. And not going to knock it, but that's a very blunt instrument compared to this, And what I like about the whole brain thinking is it's very accurate in its prediction. It's a very accurate tool now. It was the original and best. It was done like 40 years ago. But the thing I really like about it is it's prescriptive. It doesn't just give you a kind of deck that gathers dust on a shelf. There's things you can do it, and it helps you become much more effective as a communicator, because you can understand the language.
And you can also learn how to deliver information, receive information.
That's exactly right.
That's how we use it in our workshops.
You're so smart. Well, you're way ahead of the game from most. I mean, doing that.
I'll take that. Thanks.
Yeah, you're way ahead of the game.
That's the first time I've been called smart on this cooler.
Yeah, I think. Should we close it here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Have the chair.
Have
a good weekend, everyone.
You want to stop it here? After that, that's it.
Fuck off. No, but let's just wind back a bit. You were talking about like how you didn't embrace or leverage coming up with your own kind of frameworks, but consolidated frameworks to use at the right time, the right place. Yeah. Did that influence this book? Is that why it's called Dim Sum? Is that where that
absolutely Dim Sum strategy? The thought behind it was, God, do I call it an introduction to brand centered management? Boring. Actually, it would probably have sold more because people would understand what it's about. Rather, and I am kind of beating on my own things, which was, comprehension beats cleverness. But no, the idea of Dim Sum strategy was like, lots of small morsels, and it was geared towards the younger generations. Everyone's younger than me now, but I mean more millennial Gen Z's kind of types who liked information really fast, a mile wide, inch deep, but when they're interested, they'll dig a little deeper. So the idea was, this is a book, you can read the whole book on a long plane journey, but you can cherry pick and get something valuable in a 5-minute read like this. You can pick up a tool, you can get it instantly, and if you want to go research and go deeper, here's the start, you can do that yourself. And so that was it. Cherry pick the things that you want, but it actually does have a philosophy and approach, and there is an order if you want it that way as well. So it basically takes people through the brand-centered management process and the 4Ds that we develop, the discovery, definition, which is your brand DNA, direction, setting your strategic priorities as an organization, and delivery, accelerating the way in which you do it through third parties. And that 4Ds process has been taken up and adopted or changed into 3Ds or 5Ds. I've seen it so many places, everywhere. And that's kind of the most rewarding thing, is not necessarily having attribution for that, but seeing other people, hundreds of other people using, what you started. It's quite rewarding.
So,
and would you?
Actually, let me go.
Go on, you go.
Because for the people in the the chat or the viewers now that have not used this and not worked the process, when they go through this, explain to the audience now how this helps you guide the decisions all the way from, basically from design all the way through to customer. How does that influence this? How does your book, how does your process, how does that influence that?
Okay. Well, basically it's saying, the heart of it is like, the brand-centered management process says your brand, if you articulate it in that rich way that I was saying, that territory in the mind or your associations, if you put that really at the center of your organization, it drives everything that your organization does and says. But rather than doing the say bit first, which I was talking about earlier, the design language, the logos straight out on my website, give me a new ad campaign, do the doing first. So it drives your corporate strategy, what your key priorities are. It drives your internal communication, so your people walk the talk. It drives the systems and structures that enable or hinder you from delivering against your promise. So these are fundamental things. And, I can give you some examples later. Then it gets into the external communication side and your marketing and your looks and your design and everything else like that. But ultimately, it's, it goes into your actual products and services in the real world. That's where your customers meet your brand. And then it talks about, their perceptions of the experience, which is at the tail end. And those perceptions of your experience should match your DNA, because your DNA is basically saying, this is what we want people to think of our brand, and before they've actually said anything, and guide it. So the whole process is that brand-centered management thinking. And the 4Ds is a simplification way of beginning on that process. So discovery is, excuse me, doing your homework to basically understand, exactly where you are, what the current perceptions of your brand are. And you can ask, we've all done it now, my simple brand audits ask the big questions of clients up front, how is it? How is your brand perceived? And they'll say, by whom? What do you mean by that? I said, well, what do people think of your brand? I said, what do the different target segments see? Do they see the same things in a similar way, or do they see things differently? And what is it that they value most in what you have to offer? And how are they behaving, relative to your competitors? How do they define what your competitive frame is? What do you see as your core strengths? What are the main challenges that you see and that you're facing? And how would you describe the personality of your brand? And it goes deeper in that. This is all part of the discovery questionnaire, which we developed over years to be a really efficient tool that works from general to specific. And then ends up saying, well, what would you do if you were the brand owner? What would you do differently? So it turns out to drive into the third D, the direction, strategically, what you would do. So we didn't used to just come back with a discovery report that was kind of nice to know kind of feedback from what people's perceptions were. It came back with a here's what people would do if they were you. This is what they would do differently. 1, 2, 3, and it would drive actionable change in interesting and surprising ways. So that was, that's the discovery. So we had 5 C's of that, so people have a comprehensive way of understanding, the current trends that you're working in, your competitive framework, your key customer understanding, your own company driving things. So there are kind of tools that you can check and boxes that you can check, and some companies will really understand their competitive frame brilliantly, and they'll come back with an amazing, insightful gap analysis of their competitive positioning, but they haven't understood their own workings or their own culture at all. So and it's very rare that companies or brands are strong in all 5 C's. So and then lots of other tools that I take through in the what I call the
you guys. They should definitely get it. I mean, just look at the post-its in my book.
Oh, thank you. That's great. I love seeing those.
Me a lot. You know what I mean? Definitely.
Yeah. In your experience, Peter, is this process suited to a certain type of company, like size of a company, what stage they are in their journey? I'm thinking about, what about startups who are thinking, this sounds like a little bit too much, like we just want to make money at the moment? Like, what do you say to those?
Is this where the CFO's going? It's fluff.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
The battle we normally have is where the CEO's going, oh, this is fluff, like we don't need it.
No. No. Or do I need to do it? It sounds too much like hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
And I basically say to that, I use another metaphor of the 3 little piggies, and I say, look, do you want to build a house of straw or a house of brick? And so many, especially the young startups, they want the sex without the foreplay. Sorry, and even if it was good for them, it wasn't good for their there is no way around doing your homework if you want to build a house of brick. So many of them want to build a house of straw. Do I need to do my homework? Do I need to do the discovery? Do I really need to understand my positioning yet? Well, go off, and if you're lucky, you're going to be 1 in 100 that hits it right.
By chance,
but there's a 99% chance you're not, and you're going to come back and you're going to need to do it properly. So to your question, Ash, is it relevant for, and it honestly, and this is where one of the weaknesses are, because we keep saying niche down, narrow focus, but actually it works across all spectrums, all categories, and all stages. And what we found when we were doing as a setup, we did actually work with the big companies at first, and because those were where our contacts and our connections were, and it worked incredibly well for them. And I found that even as the head of the most creative agency in the world, and the BBDO, I couldn't get into the chairman of these top companies. And in this tiny little startup in our basement, where I used to look up at my kind of ex-Gordon Gekko power office, and the 3 of us were working as a startup, and I'm thinking, what the hell have we done? I could get in and see the CEOs of these top organizations because we were talking their language. It was all to do with business and driving business, not just flogging ads, So did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
A comment in the chat, which I won't repeat, but we can probably work out which one I'm laughing at.
Oh yeah, Lena, thank you. We can. I'm glad you
did it's the subtext there. Can I just touch upon that? Like, it's interesting because the way we've developed our process is we ground everything in purpose and we build everything from purpose. Okay, so a bit like how you're explaining, it's an orchestra, it's the conductor for the orchestra, and it pushes every lever within the business, internally, externally. How come, like at the start of the call, you mentioned that you put that last? Where did that come from in your process? I'm just really curious about that.
Sorry, Wes. I was getting distracted by the anal age typo thing that we had on there. Somebody
I was just thinking, like, why is that her autocorrect? Anyway,
no, it was just an amazing Freudian. It completely threw me, and I wasn't listening to your question. You're gonna have to repeat it. Sorry.
I was saying, like, so earlier on the start of the call, you were talking about the process and how, I don't know if it was intentional, but you said purpose comes at the end of your process.
Oh, well,
the purpose comes at the start.
I mean, the establishing and crafting your brand DNA comes right at the beginning, because that kind of cements the direction. It's your lighthouse beam, if you like.
Yeah.
But within the DNA, the hardest part is defining why you exist.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it very, very difficult. The personality, the culture, the way in which you do things, that's probably one of the easiest things.
Yeah.
You know, we're like
right. I think when you really dig in and you really have to understand why you exist beyond making money, it's tough.
Yeah,
and it's really hard. You know,
it's really hard, and you don't want to keep doing the multiple why thing so much that you end up saying we're doing this to make the world a better place and make our universe the best universe ever. You know, you can regress to there's something that's so meaningless. You know, you need to find something that's absolutely kind of unique to
and
you.
that they can activate, that they can follow through on.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
I mean, let me give you an example. When we did this for one of the big telcos in Hong Kong, the guy they were differentiating on a technical basis because the CEO was a technical, physicist whiz guy, and they had got the most efficient clarity in their kind of network thing, and they could, scientifically claim that actually to whatever decibel it was, their clarity was higher than any others. But their customers just couldn't care less, and they didn't attribute it to the service provider, him anyway. They gave it to the mobile phones, which then was Nokia, you know. And so we said, look, yeah, you're doing it, but nobody cares. It's not the kind of thing that values or triggers them. Thank you, Ralph, for your comment in your book. So we said, look, actually what's important to them when we'd done our discovery work was the fact that you are the link, you're the relationship through communications to information, entertainment, and education that they want. So own the relationship. So we flipped it completely from a hard scientific thing to a relationship. It was hugely successful for them, and it rocketed them from 5th out of 8 providers to 3rd, and it ended up, driving an affiliationship and a partnership with Vodafone from the UK, which was hugely important for them because the government was reducing the number of phone providers from 6 or 7 to 3 or 4. So they were in the top 3. It changed the company. So, yeah. Thank you, Ralph, for your nice comments. And
Peter, do you mind if we take some questions? There's a question from the in the comments.
I think Pauline's got a great one. Read it out.
You don't mind? We'll just go back and forth as they come in. So Pauline's asking, how do you explain to a client how what you do directly impacts sales or bottom line? Good question.
Basically,
do it with another sex metaphor, please.
Yeah, no sex metaphor or anal age.
I think enough sex metaphors today. I'm going to be labelled the dirty old man. The Scotsman. It is a great question, Pauline, and it's a question that so many people ask. And, I go back to the old world of advertising, which was, saying, I know that half of my advertising expenditure works. I just don't know which half does work. And so I know it's a little bit of a get out on that one. But, you can, the best way I do is with examples and testimonials from the past. And I say, go back and talk to these guys and see whether or not it made an impact. I said, sometimes the impact can be incredibly fast. Other times it takes years to build up and establish or change a system or a program of things like this. So, we did work for a Pure Fitness group, a big regional fitness group. And what we analyzed was, they had it all kind of right. They had a brilliant studio in Hong Kong. They had a great location. They had a wonderful kind of personality. It was youthful. It was great. their key weakness was the turnover of fitness trainers. So people would establish a relationship, and then, you know, the fitness trainer that they had, which they affiliated with more than the organization, would disappear. So, you know, that was a systems and a structures thing. So we had a system in place to recruit people who were likely to stay longer, and a training system and a program that helped them deliver their promise more efficiently of having longer staying, harder working kind of trainers. So, you know, and that directly impacted their bottom line. It may be a completely different thing for, you know, Shangri-La, for example. When we did their brand DNA, they came to us because we were guailos in Hong Kong, which basically is a derogatory term that the Chinese use for foreigners, even though we'd lived there for like 20 years. And they were looking to expand their hotel network into North America. Funnily enough, they were building in Vancouver, where I am now. And so that's luck. You know, it wasn't our brilliance that brought them to our door. It was the fact that they thought we would understand the North American market better. They thought that they had to, you know, pitch themselves to businessmen and, you know, the Ritz-Carltons and the others were kind of doing this very heavy, you know, banker types, you know, dark blue marbles, brass and leather kind of thing. And they thought maybe they needed to do that. And we quickly, having done our discovery work, dispelled that myth and saying, no, you're Shangri-La, you're incredibly feminine. You're all about traditional Asian values delivered in a contemporary way. Your chandeliers, your cheongsams, your tea ceremonies. You know, you can blend old and new, but don't ever lose the Asianness within it. And, you know, that's what people expect from Shangri-La. And you go and you do that over there. And the people that love Shangri-La for those values will come to you. And those people that want the Western banking kind of, you know, banker wanker models, you know, they can go somewhere else. You know, that's fine. You know, define the boundaries of your brand. Yeah. So look, I'm not sure, Pauline, whether that answered your question, but for Shangri-La, once they changed that, by the way, it fundamentally changed the entire position of their network, and it drove the way in which they expand and built their hotel chain around the world. We changed their entire brand architecture. It went deeper than that. They had traders and things, and they were losing they had 6-star Shangri-Las and 1 and 4-star Shangri-Las in China, where, you know, they were exchanging kind of hotel chains for Coca-Cola distributorships, because that's the way it worked in Asia. They owned, and I said, no, you can't do that. If you know, you're going to be defined by your lowest common denominator, not your highest. So we relabeled, you know, some 4-star Shangri-Las traders, and, you know, and made absolutely sure that they didn't share things like bathroom amenities or towels and stuff, which is what they were doing and confusing the brands. So it took Pauline, that took years to kind of, for them to see the value of the impact on it. And how can you compare something once you've taken a route with what the opportunity cost of not having taken that route would have been? I suspect for Shangri-La, it would have been millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. For a smaller startup, if you're in this sense, you know, you just have to believe that, you know, having a relevant, compelling, credible and distinctive positioning is going to set you in good stead. It's not rocket science, this brand work that we do. We make it much more complicated and fill it with jargon and crap, but you've got to believe that if you deliver against that consistently, will help you succeed. But yeah, so I guess the short answer is going back and showing examples in the past of what it will, and testimonials do help. But again, I go back to the analyze your customer and say, are you talking to a deaf horse who's you've taken to water many times and they're just not gonna ever drink it? Or have you got somebody who's really interested and prepared to take that kind of investment in time and energy in that journey with you to develop a really kind of compelling brand DNA that works?
Yeah, it's interesting. Usually the way I put it is 3 ways, right? So it's much easier to be on a rowing boat when everyone rows in the same direction. So that's number one, right? They usually get it. And the second one is like, performance marketing, lead generation, and sales is very important, and it's very easy, and it's very addictive, almost like a sugar rush, because you spend $1 and you get $2. It's easy to understand. But the problem is that if you do not start to build your brand equity, your brand positioning, your brand DNA today, that sales and that performance will never be easier. As soon as you stop putting that dollar, you stop putting returns back. But what happens if you start building your brand? Might be a bit slower, might need a bit more time, but eventually will hit the flywheel. So you will have to you will reduce the budget drastically in sales and lead generation, because brand is doing the uplift, attracting the right consumers. And the third point is that brand is the best sales pitch, right? The brand does the sales pitch to the consumer, and the consumer comes to you with the wallet already open, and you just have to do the last mile. That is the importance as well. So that is how I try to manage this conversation with my clients. Brand happens anyway. And yes, it might take a bit more time, but you do want to get into the brand flywheel, because everything will become easier inside, outside.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, once you've owned that, and I love the rowing in the same direction thing. It's a very kind of short and simple way of understanding that. There's, I mean, some examples, even if you present them, people will believe or not believe. I mean, I've worked and consulted with both Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And when I was with Pepsi, the Pepsi Challenge was one of the key things that they did on top of the brand values of choice of the new generation and young. And they combated that because, in blind taste tests, Pepsi beat Coke. It had a richer, sweeter kind of cola taste. But when the brands were revealed, Coke beat Pepsi because of their familiarity and their saliency and their over it. So we would play that game and saying, don't be fooled, and this is, try it for yourself. And so the taste test challenge, Coke guys used to hate, and that's what actually triggered the Roger Enrico's, the other guy, blinked when Coke launched New Coke and withdrew it, and then had all of those protests
because of the massive backlash. Yeah,
massive.
So on that, Peter, are you Coke or Pepsi?
Do you know what? You are a bastard, Wes. I've got friends in both camps, actually. Do you know what? I'm probably a little bit more Pepsi, but I've got to say the Coke guys were fantastic. Well, they were amazing organizations to work with, and completely different culturally. I mean, Coke was Atlanta, it was every man, it was everybody, it's love the world and the universe. Pepsi was raw youth energy, kind of change the script, be focused, be pointy, don't worry if you upset people, choice of the new generation. I kind of fitted more into that in my youth when I was there. And
it's funny, like I'm the same, like from a demographic point of view, but from a taste point of view, it's weird. Like I'm a Coke guy today.
If you would have asked Wes, are you a Coke or Pepsi, he would have said Negroni. Sure. We know the answer.
Like what we're putting in it.
Yeah, which would be a great answer, by the way. I mean, when faced with only two choices, take the third.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to move a bit personal now, which is fine, hopefully. What does you do outside of strategy? What's a regular Saturday look like for you?
Fishing.
What do I do outside of strategy?
Yeah, outside of that office, outside of that wonderful window there, what goes on in Peter's world?
Well, I've just come back from my dream God's own country, which is fly fishing on the River Thompson, which is just like, I'm not an overly religious person, but if you can touch the face of God, it's fly fishing on the Thompson River for these beautiful trout. It's just amazing. You're on your own, and it puts my faith back in God. I love that. But I'm also, we talked about earlier in the startup, a footy fan for my sins, and I still played old guy football before I ever had a few health issues. But
I saw you talk about that quite a lot on LinkedIn. I think I've seen it.
Yeah,
on your Instagram, but I did want to pick that up. It's not walking football. You're not at that age.
Oh God, no. This is proper competitive old guys football. Before I had my little health thing last year, I was playing with. It's really amazing here. There's 190 over 55 teams here in BC. 190.
I mean, it is a large place,
and it's a great sport. So they have a national tournament. So even though it's a bit of a cheek, I'm kind of Scott really at heart, but I played for the England team here
I
in
love
the
it.
over 59s. It's really competitive game. And
What's the supporters groups out out there?
oh, it's wonderful because we have a local team here called the Whitecaps, Vancouver Whitecaps,
Yeah,
and
of course.
it's everybody's second team because
You
we've got
adopt it, don't you?
Persians, we've got Italians, we've got Spanish, we've got British, we've got the whole smorgasbord, and everyone comes in there. People come to the games in a Bayern Munich, or I wear my Hearts shirt or my
No, I never got that though. Like, obviously,
and,
I was a Red Bulls fan back then, but
right.
I never understood you turn up and everyone's wearing other shirts, and you're like, this just don't work for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm like, I have so many other hobbies. I read a lot, play golf really badly. I do boxing classes because my wife took it. I need to defend myself. They do a thing called Rumble Boxing here, which is it's like Fight Club meets nightclub. They have it in these.
Not allowed to talk about it though.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
A bit late for that.
Hey, yeah. So come on then, tell me what you sing in the shower. What's your go-to? You must be you've got some music in you there. I know that. I can see it.
What's my what was the question?
What's your ballad? What do you sing in the shower?
I bet he's a Celine Dion type of guy.
No, what?
No.
My heart goes up.
Here, far, wherever.
You know what? It's a bit pathetic. Yeah, I have my go-to playlist, but it's kind of whatever sticks in my brain that's been stuck in there. So my wife
What was the last thing that stuck in your brain then?
You're going to laugh at this.
This is why I ask it.
Charlotte will be. It was Flower of Scotland because my wife just come back from Edinburgh, my graduation, and she was humming it, from the graduation thing, and it's a brilliant national anthem, like the American national anthem. But Flower of Scotland's incredibly powerful. Charlotte will give me a thumbs up.
Mark in the group here, you should connect with. I don't know if you do, but he's a G, and he's up that way as well. Really clever guy, really smart, witty. And lastly, I just got one more question. If you were a superhero and you had a superpower, what would that superpower be?
You mean, first of all, you mean you don't think I'm a superhero?
No, I think I know what your superpower would be.
I'm insulted, mate. I thought you only took superheroes on. Modesty would be one of my attributes. No, it would. I'm not quite sure what superhero it would be, although I relate.
It's your superpower, like
Batman is my favorite for what it's worth. Yeah, I love Batman. He's super cool.
What year? Which one?
My superpower would be slaying the Vogons. Do you know what I mean by Vogons?
Yes.
No.
Explain it to the group though.
Vogons is in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Vogons are the really ugly race who are basically bureaucrats, and they slow down everything with paperwork and stupid rules.
You talk about politicians, Pete.
Yeah, it's like if we've all worked with these large bureaucratic organizations, they tend to be government linked or possibly educational, healthcare, the same things. They've been around for a century. Computer says no, Little Britain. Dumb things, and people hide behind it and have these incredibly apparently fruitful, successful ways of procreating these awful systems that just need to be hand grenaded and blown up. So I would be a Vogon slayer, that would come in and cut these down at the knees and say, cut the crap, get out there, get a real job in the private world and the private sector, and go. I mean, having said that, there's some very good people in those bad systems, and there's some very bad people in bad systems, and it's the bad one in bad systems that I would slay.
We need more of those people, definitely.
Oh, Millie, thank you. Yeah, and send them homeward to think again.
You're not crying about your song, by the way.
No, he's crying about that. I actually said he was a good guy and they should connect.
Oh, is that what it is?
Because he actually appreciates me, Ash. You know what I
mean? Yeah. Have you got your towel, Peter? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know where that
you
one
need to explain that.
Explain
for the shower.
Yourself, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Explain yourself. But let's just, before we head off, because I wanted to ask the question, like how do the kind of brand strategists coming up get better at what they do? And I want to shine a light on your lighthouse.
Yeah.
Is it an academy, or what how do you position it?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking, Ash. And yeah, I call it the Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy, but yeah, because academy just sounds like it's kind of important, but it's not. It's not academic. Actually, it's the opposite. It's practical, and the whole idea of Lighthouse as I get older is that it is really genuinely to kind of democratize a much higher level of brand strategy thinking, and provide those people who want to learn and level up their strategic skills, but couldn't necessarily afford to kind of go to a university project, or don't want to go into one of these rote learning kind of academic programs, to make it affordable and accessible and actionable. So democratizing a higher level of brand strategy thinking. And frankly, one of the other problems is that the entry level to be able to call yourself a brand strategist is incredibly low. And we've all encountered them in any kind of population. You've got people who can masquerade as brand strategists, because you can get any formula or framework that you want in 2 minutes. You don't even need to get your prompts right now, because generative AI will teach you how to get your prompt right. So it's not
send a bunch of questionnaires and job done.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can, whatever it was, you can go now and you can press the button in a black magic box, and it will give you your synthesized qualitative research findings. It will draft your brand DNA for you if you want. It will translate that into a marketing communications plan. It will give you a strategic framework. It will even do your kind of graphic designs and your mood boards and everything else.
And there'll be a lot of M dashes and emojis in that document.
And I bet your Foster's used in there a few times.
Yeah, and it will. So you can. It's not the frameworks and things that differentiate us anymore. It's the caliber of experience and nous and calculated risk taking, that human factor that you need to weld with it. And I'm not anti-AI, by the way. But you use it, you don't become used by it. So the Lighthouse is that fusion of humanity and people, and it's a very small community that you understand those people, and you can have a relationship with them, and you can share your journeys. Gladwell said that there is a kind of a maximum kind of level of maybe 120 people where you can have nodding acquaintances with, and that totally relates to my experience of running ad agencies. When you got bigger than 120 people, you began to lose your soul, and you didn't know them well. But if you work within that, you can get much better, richer relationships. So social media has its purpose. It connected us through LinkedIn and others, but it's also kind of at a level, and if you get people who just like you because they know your name, but they never read your actual posts, and sort of half of them are self-serving anyway, and they're just out there, and they're all automated anyway. If you can afford it, somebody's paying a social media manager to work the algorithm and chuck stuff out, and it's all adding to this generic mush. Where I believe we're going into is these more private communities. And so that's what the Lighthouse does as well. Have a small, intimate community of people who know each other, respect each other. Half of them are business owners, half of them are aspiring brand strategists, but they're opposite sides of the same coin. And all of them need to understand how to craft the brand DNA that will set them consistently off in the right direction.
Amazing.
And, so that's. Thank you for asking, and I've personally made it really affordable to,
And they can reach out straight out to you on LinkedIn. Is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, we're gonna leave you with two good news. Lee says, "May I suggest your superhero character be Magento? You're uplifting in the next generation of brand X-Men."
Love that.
Oh, that's a brilliant one, Magneto. I think it was. I'd love to think I had a magnetic personality. You need to have a chat with my wife before that. She'll dispel that one very quickly. But yeah, no, I love that.
And then we have Iwan, just purchased your book, Peter. Thank you for these valuable insights. And please do send us over the percentage as well.
Thank you, Iwan. great. It's
So, like I said, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn, Peter?
Where are you at?
And anytime, and on LinkedIn they can go to my website. It's peterwilken.com. That's WILKEN, not .com. You can find everything there, and I'll send you my Linktree link with everything in there. And there's
things in the comments.
You could drop it in the comments on this post.
You can pick it up there. Yeah.
Okay, if I can do that in the.
You can do that after.
You don't have to do it now.
Okay.
So the post with the event, you can put the comments in there, and you can even read the comments from, because the chat today was on fire. There was a lot of people there, so read the comments. You'll love them.
Yeah. Before we go, I know we're going to run over a bit, but have you got any questions for us, Peter?
I would. Yeah, I love the energy of you guys, and I've been following what you've been doing with Wham. I would say, if here's a tough one for you. You're obviously having great success, and I celebrate that. It's wonderful. But if you had now, on reflection, how long have you been going?
Almost 2 years now.
Almost 2 years. It's a great time to ask, what would you do differently now? Because in 2 years, you're already cementing your habits. What would you do differently if you had a chance to start again?
I would buy Ash a sat nav that works from the very start, 100%.
I don't think the question was about the water cooler.
No, it's about you. It's about us. Yeah, you need
to about you, but your partnership.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Because you get lost all the time, Ash.
Yeah, they'd buy me a sat nav, and I'd probably lose it somewhere.
You need a sat nav to find the sat nav. Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting question. Like, let's all ask it, answer it individually.
I don't think I would change anything.
I don't think I would change too much.
Yeah. I think the only pain point is the distance, and we're very busy, very far away, so we don't get to have a lot of off work and off water cooler time anymore, which is unfortunate. But I wouldn't change anything, because all the little things and all the little missteps.
I think I'd like to do more meetups without it being about work.
Yeah.
Because we get together in workshops and we work, and then we do let our hair downs.
Yeah.
Apart from me, obviously. But I just love to just do a little bit more, just get together. We're planning that now, aren't we?
I generally think the only thing I would change is I'm a very touchy-feely, feely kind of guy, and sometimes you just want to reach out to your brothers, and you want to 10 minutes sit down outside a pub, and you can't have that, and so you revert to pixels. And
I do know something now.
I was in the middle of something there.
No, but it's based on that. What Wes has said, what I would change is switching my phone off at 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's usually when Wes
becomes lovely and lovable and wants to talk at 3
I like to do video calls at 3 a.m. What's wrong with that? It's like
nothing at all. But I think it's always the usual story, isn't it, Peter? Like when you start to get together, and you gotta protect the spontaneity and the coming together, and so it does not become only transactional.
I think the flip of that, Peter, the reason why I think we are as successful as we are is because of what we've got. Like, we've never held each other back. We guide each other. We always kind of take each other's ideas, as crazy as they may be, with the greatest grain of salt, and we try and formulate and make them work. And I think that's what's happened. That's why Watercooler was founded off of the back of us strategizing on ourselves, trying to get ourselves out in front of people. And Ash came up with this genius idea of using a free platform, and took an idea that we did already out into the ether, and it just went, and from a strategy point of view, the reason why we all worked together is we all agreed early that by fate, it actually happened, but we just decided to run our own workshops inside our own workshops. So we all know our own material, we all present our own material, we take in bite-sized chunks, all the frameworks individually. And that happened because, in all fairness, we got absolutely shit-faced the first time we all got together, and we walked into a workshop and we were like, we didn't even get a chance to rehearse this because we were meant to, and we didn't. So we decided just to present all our own frameworks in order, and it worked. And it just stayed. It's just fucking weird how it worked. It was just wild.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, clearly you've got a fantastic chemistry between the three of you, and the collective wisdom of three brains over one is always better to have that kind of sounding board.
Three half brains.
Yeah,
That's
I
why.
Yeah,
can't
1.5.
play after like 6 o'clock normally.
Yeah. But that's lovely to hear that. I mean, basically what I'm hearing is just more, but even richer and more human and personal. And you do make time for yourself. I mean, you guys, one of the things, we're not big enough a community in the Lighthouse yet to do it, but the physical getting together of having events. And I think Martin Neumeier cracked that with his level C, and that's where everything was built from around. There's more than enough people out there to kind of benefit from that, especially if it's in Cyprus, Martin. You'll get people coming.
So while you're on the call, I was going to do this after you've gone, but while we're on that, so we've got potential 2 dates to like come and give me a hug in the flesh. So Milan might be the first one. So we're out in Milan in the first week of September. So cuddles are on tap there. If you want to cuddle, come and see me. And then the three of us are going to be in December. I think the weekend of the 12th in London, and then it's wildfire at that point. I think so. If you want to come and hang, we can play. That's what I'm saying.
You're inviting me.
If you want to come,
I think everyone is going to be in London around.
If you're over Christmas,
that would be a wonderful thing. So yeah.
Who knows?
We should plan that, by the way, Wes, and announce it next time, guys. We are 10 minutes. We're 10 minutes over. Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely rest of the day. Have a lovely weekend. And we'll catch you soon, guys. Go buy the book, check out the academy, and go and follow himself on everything as well. Go get it.
Thank you so much for having me. It really was a total pleasure. That flew by, and hopefully the listeners enjoyed it. And I will.
Yeah, you've got fans already, man. You've got a few purchases there. You're off.
No, that's super kind. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone who was listening for your comments.
Thank you, Peter.
Have a great day, Pete.
Take care.
Bye, Peter.
Bye.
That's a good one. It's another guest that could have gone on for hours and hours and hours.
That's why we do what we do, boys. That's why we do what we do.
That turned into like a live shopping channel, didn't it?
Yeah. Shoppertainment.
We're gonna monetize this shit so we can do like a kitty pack for Negronis,
Can you play my ticker now, because I'm not in control.
What a great guy, and what a great conversation, man.
Play my ticker. Thank you.
Guys, go and follow the LinkedIn channel. Help us out, spread the love, leave a message. We'll see you in 2 weeks with who?
I was just about to say it.
But it's gonna be great. And yes, I am traveling in London for workshop and pleasure and all of that.
Yeah.
And probably the weekend of the 12th we'll be in London. Maybe we find a venue. We send invitation out, open door policy. Come and please come and buy a Negroni to West.
Just on that, we did it under the radar last time, and we got about 8 people on the fly 2 days before. So let's go.
Hope to see you there.
It's gonna happen. Bye, boys. Love you. Everyone. Be good. Have a good weekend.
Come in.
Bye.
Ciao, everyone.